Warning, sugar is actually destroying your brain. Sugar creates very similar effects to cocaine and heroin on certain parts of the brain. In one study, if given a choice, a lab rat will go after the sugar more than the cocaine. Sugar has the ability to alter hormones that literally puts you into this anxiety state when there's nothing around you to be anxious about. But what comes way before that is a mild version of dementia. You start losing your memory, which you just start forgetting. And you're like, okay, where do I put my keys? You might have difficulty with names. You're not thinking clearly. The last place that the sugar goes to is the hippocampus. This part of the brain allows you to remember things. And so when you're eating a lot of sugar and then eventually get prediabetes or diabetes, that all stems from sugar. People will tell you that the brain needs sugar to survive. And it is true that the brain can run on glucose. The problem is when you do too much glucose, you start developing a blockage of the absorption of glucose. If we take a look at how much glucose that's supposed to be in your blood at any one time, that's 1 teaspoon. Here's the thing, people eat a lot more than 1 teaspoon of sugar. So where does it go? Insulin stores it, but then anything more is stored as fat. A lot of the cholesterol that people have that's too high is coming from carbs or sugar. What happens when you're eating excessive sugar, anything more than 1 teaspoon, is you start developing higher levels of insulin that has to do the heavy lifting. But the doctors never test for this fasting insulin level because if they did on an average person, they would find it to be very, very high. What happens over time is that your pancreas keeps working harder and harder and you have more and more insulin. And then the brain and other tissues of the body start to create this thing called insulin resistance. When you have more than a teaspoon of sugar at any one time, the insulin is not working to pull that sugar out. Then you start getting higher blood glucose, and that's called diabetes. You have so much insulin resistance, you can no longer pull in the glucose and feed the brain cells. So the brain cells cannot get energy. And it wasn't even just the sugar. It was all the hidden sugar. I'm talking about starch, many times worse than actual sugar. And then, of course, you're drinking all this juice thinking, oh, yeah, it's from oranges, right? Pure sugar. The most important thing that you could do with your diet is keep your carbs lower. The low carb diet creates the most benefit and reverses diabetes within 10 weeks. That should be in every newspaper, but you probably don't hear about it. Here you have this sugar and starch, highly addictive. They put all these chemicals in it. Anytime you eat anything with low protein, it's really hard for you to be satisfied. When you lower your carbohydrates, you no longer are feeding the brain cells glucose because you're now forcing your body to mobilize ketones, which is a completely different fuel from your own fat. And that's going to feed your brain. It's going to bring up your mood. You're going to be able to concentrate. You're going to have more attention. You're going to learn better. You're going to have more capacity to remember things. And that fatigue in your brain is going to go away. Now, another little side note to this, I had my genes tested. Apparently, my genetics show kind of a weakness in the area of being satisfied. If I don't consume enough fat or protein, I will literally never be satisfied. So the combination of all the carbs and the frequent eating and the snacks, really bad. Until one day I discovered that if I consume more protein, I could be more satisfied and not have to snack. Protein is the solution to this carb problem. Having enough sufficient protein and fat will get rid of your cravings and decrease the need for snacking. It's not necessarily just about cutting your carbs, it's what you're going to replace it with. And I'm talking about replacing with grass fed meat. You can do eggs, you can do fish, but I'm telling you, this protein with the fat that normally comes with it will quickly reverse and help correct this insulin problem. And that brain fog will go away so fast. This is one of the most simple, most amazing things you can recommend to someone is to make sure they have enough high quality protein with the meal without the carbs. You do have people that are so used to eating junk food, it's really hard to have them make the transition. But there's some really cool things that you can eat that will be very close or mimic what you have been eating. Let's just take, for example, fat and sweet. Okay. At the end of the meal, you can get some Greek yogurt, no sugar. There's certain brands of chocolate that don't have any sugar. There is a ton of recipes to do alternative breads, pasta, cereal. All of the flour products can be replaced by a healthier version. This is not about depriving yourself. This is about just replacing it with a upgrade. There are recipes that you can make, like the butter chicken, the Indian dish that's so delicious that you go to this Indian restaurant and you have this butter chicken and it's so amazing. Of course, they put tons of sugar in it. There's recipes, and I'll put one down below that virtually tastes identical to that, but there's no sugar in it. There's just spices and it's delicious. So you can enjoy your food, but without the sugar and without the snacking. Yes, the brain can live on sugar, but it doesn't need a lot. Very similar to a plant. It needs water, but what happens when you overwater it? It dies. And that teaspoon of sugar that's needed for your blood can be created from your liver from things that are not sugar. So you really don't need any sugar. In summary, the most dramatic thing you could do to reverse cognitive problems, lowered emotional mood issues, brain fog, is by cutting out the sugar, the hidden sugar starches, and replacing it with high quality protein with the fat. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.